What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Partners in Prosperity.
Hey, loved ones. Welcome back.
All right. And in this episode, we'll be talking about raising financially savvy kids. Whew.
And why that's important.
Yes. It is much needed, much needed. But first up, Ish and Giggles.
Yes. So this question is about a husband and wife that got married later in life. The lady has no kids. The husband has 3 kids. The lady really, because she had no kids, she had disposable income, which all you parents know that if you didn't have kids, you can only imagine what your disposable income would look like, right? Mm-hmm. So she was able to invest in real estate. So she has about 5 properties that she has. And the husband comes to her one day and says, hey, I'm thinking that at some point you need to leave each of these properties to one of my children. The background in his children, they're grown. And he's saying, we're a family now. And so you don't have any kids. I'm feeling like you need to leave these properties to my kids because that's what we are, that's what we do. Is she wrong if she doesn't, or should she leave them to his kids? She doesn't have kids.
So she doesn't have kids. Mm-hmm. Did she acquire these properties on
prior
her
to
own?
Her marriage? Yes, they got married later in life.
Right, but did she acquire them on her own, or did she get them from an ex who passed, or anything like that?
That's a good question. So let's say, for Ish and Giggles,
okay,
she did there. Yeah, she got them on her own.
Okay,
she kind of spent her life just kind of investing, putting money away, and has these 4 properties, and that's kind of her retirement. But her husband's saying at some point you're going to need to leave these to my kids. They have a relationship, but not like a relationship where your kids are grown, so it's not like a super close relationship. But they're family now, and so in his mind, that's what you do in your family is you leave things. Now, background, they own their home together, but he doesn't own homes that he can leave to them. But he's saying, we're married now, so we own homes we can leave to them. So that's what happens when you get married. It becomes a French situation, and everything is we.
Yeah. Well, about that.
What would you do?
I still need more details. So, did she have a plan for these already? What was she going to do with them when she passed?
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't even know yet.
Because I feel like that plays a part in it. Like if she was going to give them to nieces and nephews or something, it should stay with that. It should stay with that. But if she has zero plan for them and the state was just going to give them to the kids.
But why wouldn't she liquidate them and use them for, what we've been dealing with on my side of the family is just kind of planning for old age and planning for assisted living and planning for some of those things.
That's a good podcast topic.
For sure. So that's kind of hit us, right? On our side of the family is how do we plan for that and the realities of what happens when you kind of don't have a plan for that. Right. So perhaps she has the option just to liquidate them and be able to pay for that, that long-term nurse's care or that assisted living. But you don't have that if you now put them in your kids' names. And if you're not that close to the kids, can they be trusted to take care of you?
Right. So I get that part about using them while she's still alive, but it sounds like the proposition here was what to do with them once she is no longer here, right?
For sure. And so if she's blessed, she will live a long life and need to kind of figure out care for herself later on. So maybe she won't have those properties if they're not put in the kids' names. Maybe she won't have those properties
it may not even be an issue then, you're saying.
Well, she won't be able to, if the state needs them, you know how the state is.
Yes.
And we will definitely talk about what we've learned and ways to kind of circumvent that. Yeah. But if, barring you putting them in any type of trust or doing anything to make sure the state can't have access to them, if you need help, you need to use those properties.
You gotta get rid of them.
Yeah. So she won't have them at that point because they're in the kid's name. So what would you do? We have a blended family. So I know it's not the same for us because we blended our family when everybody was pretty young. Yeah. So it's pretty much the definition of like a modern family now, right? It's not. It's no longer. Most people that don't know us wouldn't know that we had a blended family.
It's
it's more of a it's a modern family. Yeah. But kids are older, and would you kind of come in and say, okay, I'm going to give these to your kids because now they're our kids. I know they're grown.
Okay, so in this situation, I'm the guy or the girl?
You're the guy.
Okay. I probably wouldn't try to convince her to sign the houses over. No, I probably wouldn't. Just as a man, I feel like that's not cool. But at the same time, I would also want to know what her plan is for them in general.
True.
And so if there is no plan for it, I promise you I got one.
That's my saying.
And so,
Yes.
and so, and it may not be giving it to the kids, but it may be to put it somewhere to where they can't be taken and they still stay in our family. It may not go directly to the kids. It could go in our family trust or something like that. But I wouldn't give it. I don't think it's cool to give it to them. No, especially if you know your kids, right? Even as adults, if they're irresponsible, absolutely not.
And that's why I chose this ish and giggles, because if you're waiting to kind of transfer wealth to children when they are grown and their financial habits have already been solidified, you run the risk of everything that you work for up until that time kind of not lasting past that generation,
right?
Because they don't have the groundwork to really take what you've given them and multiply it. So at that age, depending on where they were financially, do they own their own homes? Is it something that is even meaningful to them to own a home, or are they just going to sell it and take it for money, and then in 5 years you can't tell me where that money went? Those would be things that would be important to me. But I would say for me, I would say, no, I'm going to put them in a trust. We're going to start a family trust. All of these homes will go in the trust, and then the kids can live in the homes. That will be indicated in the trust, but they will never be able to sell them without kind of, these are the stipulations. They all have to agree. At least a certain amount has to go into reinvesting into a property. It definitely wouldn't be, especially because I don't have kids and you want your legacy to live on. And at that point, your legacy is really his kids, right? That's you guys are together. If you're taking on this man, you're taking on his family and who he loves. And so, I would say that we would have to have some plans for it, for sure. And it would start with a trust. And like I said, we'll get into that in a different podcast, but we would have to make sure that it's not something that could just be squandered away just
For
like
sure.
that.
For sure.
Yeah. And I asked that one because you can't wait until your kids are grown to try to figure out where they are financially and expect them to take the wealth that you've spent your life building and expound upon it if you haven't started early laying those financial foundations with them. So that's why we're talking about what we're talking about today.
Raising financially savvy kids so that they don't grow up to be financially unsavvy adults.
We get caught up in Democrats and Republicans in this race and that race. It's really going to, as the years progress, be the haves and the have-nots. Those that have the ability to kind of, take care of themselves and stand on their 2 feet, and those that are really depending on the government to kind of come in for them. Because as much as certain people believe the government should, the government is going broke trying to figure out a way to make everybody happy. And it's just not going to be the quality of life that we used to be able to have with pensions and retirements and Social Security, those type things. So raising financially savvy kids also means teaching them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet into adulthood. Because as much as these things should be in place, pensions were something that were given to like public service workers, firefighters, teachers, police officers, and they really earned that. If those accounts are not in place to really sustain them anymore, what are they going to do?
So first we'll go into why teaching kids about money matters. It's important to teach your kids about money early on so it builds a good foundation to set them up for success. What are some of the money ways, or some of the ways that we incorporate money into everyday life for the kids? We do a couple things.
We do. So we always tell our kids, don't come to us and ask us for money. Tell us how you're going to earn what you want. That way it puts them in a different mindset of somebody just handing something to me, and puts them in a mindset of giving them a bit of control over how they can kind of get what they want. We do tell them, because they're still our kids and there's still needs that they need. So when they're out and about, our kids really, they have long days. They start their day, before school. Some of them have activities before, and then they're going really until maybe sometimes 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And so for food, when they're out and about during the day, either we're bringing them food or we're giving them an allowance for food. We pay for all of that. So when they're, their basic needs, we for sure pay for. If they're out with friends, any food or anything that they need that we pay for. But all of the extra type stuff that they want, it's not about what you are going to get from us. It's how can you partner with us to earn what you want. So we try to change the mindset with them about how money comes. There's certain things that, because we as your parents, still provide for you, that are going to be given to you. But then there's other things that you have to figure out how you can make happen as well.
And one of the ways that we kind of facilitate that is with the green light card, right? And so we use that to put their allowance money on, money to spend. We talk about the 4 different accounts. They have those same different accounts on their green light card. So they have a spending account, a savings account, an investment account, and then is there another one?
No, I think that
It's
for
just
now
the
there's
three?
just the three.
Yeah, it's just the three.
Oh no, they have a giving.
Oh, yes, and giving. Yes, yes, it's the one that works for us.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps us when they're out and about because there's 5 of them. A lot of times we are trusting our village to kind of help where we can't. So if they're out with friends doing something, we know that they always have their card and it's just a tap away for us to on our phone to transfer money onto their card so that we make sure that they have it. But for them, they'll employ certain things like rounding up. So
Yeah.
anytime they buy something, it'll round up and put it into their savings account, or they will request the ability to take some money out of their checking or their savings to give towards a cost, and it'll go straight from their giving account to one of these causes that they can highlight. So it kind of teaches them, about giving and making sure that they're kind of doing their part to give and use their money for good.
Yep. And so kind of like an adult, right? You go to work and you go to work to make money. So kids don't have that ability, right? At least
Our
under
kids-
16.
Yeah.
And so their job is pretty much school. And so that's one of the ways that we use to allow them to make money.
For sure. We like to tie their success in school to the amount of money that they get. So we, talk about working smarter, not harder, but really in life, your success is going to be directly tied, to how great you are at what you're doing. And so the higher the grades, the more we give. Every other week, we set up what we call grade checks. That helps us so that we're not at the end of the semester and find out that somebody's failing or, that somebody's in over their head. We can kind of and it keeps them kind of in the loop of how they're doing as well. They can motivate each other because it's on our wall. It's on one of our walls where we have everybody's grades posted, and so they can kind of see, and we change it every 2 weeks. But we have
We should put a picture of that in here because it's like the old school. Like it's like chalkboard and everything.
It's chalkboard.
Heck yeah,
we are able to
man.
erase it and put it in there.
Heck yeah.
For our little girls that are still in elementary school, they have the ability to earn money based on, doing certain assignments, reading a book or doing maybe some math sheets, because their grades are kind of on a different track. But for our middle schoolers and high schoolers, we get their grades every week because they change, and so we've allocated a certain dollar amount for A's, B's, and C's. We don't pay for D's or F's, and it's just enough to kind of keep some spending money in their pocket. And they know, if I want more spending money, I'm going to have to figure out how these grades work. There's also ways that they can earn money, but the bulk of their money is going to come from keeping their grades up or doing those extra assignments, because we do want them to see that there is something, using your brain is directly tied to kind of how successful you are, and accumulating money in this household, because we want them to see that there is a attachment to working smart and getting money. So every
Absolutely.
2 weeks we do grade checks. We write down everybody's grades, and we are able then to pay based on that. And that's one of the ways that we kind of make sure that they're earning money, because I think we've spoken on this before. Our kids don't work for outside employment. They don't. So for us, they either work for us because they also work in our office. We do have them do things in our office so that they can earn money. But the most consistent way that they know, no matter what, that they're getting these amounts is to make sure that their grades are up, and so that they can get money for grade check.
Absolutely. And we speak to them working for us and working in the office in one of our first episodes of how to run your home like a Fortune 500 company. Check that one out. And then in our one of our other episodes where we spoke about the profit first method. So all of this stuff with the green light and the grades and all that stuff that goes towards the kids, that comes out of which bucket? From our personal one.
Our bills and debt bucket.
Yep,
Yes,
absolutely.
That's what most of the stuff
That's
comes from.
60%. Yep.
Yeah. And so, but we're also teaching them, to do a mini profit first, because although they don't have all of the accounts that we have, they are learning that there's a separate bucket for their savings. There's a separate bucket for their spending and their giving and their investment right now. So we are at least starting with those. And so Greenlight is great about kind of having those different allocated accounts so that they understand, that all their money's not going to sit in one spot, and they're, expected to kind of figure out what dollars should go where.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the next one, which is their investment allowance, right? And so Greenlight does have, like we mentioned, an account for their investments. But what's really cool that I like about it, though, is that it also allows them to, it gives them some sort of financial education on stocks and what stocks are doing good. They can research stocks in there. They can actually purchase stocks in there as well. And all of our kids have done that. And so that's something that when we do our monthly meetings, we go into this with them to see what they've purchased over the last month. if they've looked at the performance of how it's been going over the last couple of months, as well as any future investments that they want to invest in.
I do love, for us, we use, a grown-up brokerage for we don't invest through Greenlight. And so for us, you pretty much have to have the money to buy the stock in its entirety. So let's say, as we stand right now, Tesla, I think the last I checked this morning, it's $338 a share. So if I wanted to buy a share of Tesla, I would need to go and give them $338 and I'll get one share. What we love about Greenlight, what they do is that they will let our kids buy a percentage of a share. So however much they want to invest is, they'll kind of break it down and ratio it out. And so that's how much of a share you're buying. It is a great small way for them to get in. One of my sons, he's into Meta, NVIDIA. He's into these ones where his investment account is not equipped for him to buy, any more than one share of each of these. But because he is able to buy percentages of shares until he works his way up to kind of, investing more, it allows him to still feel like he's able to buy stocks. It does the daily kind of highs and lows and lets them know, this is what your portfolio started at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week, and this is where it's at. So when we do our family meetings, everybody is able to give us a portfolio performance on what they've invested in. And so although we will give them ideas on what's doing well and what we're investing in, some of them want to invest in whatever they want. I like chocolate, so I'm going to invest in Mars because they make chocolate bars. One of my kids wears Invisalign, so our youngest daughter invested in Smile because it's so although we try to steer them in the direction of kind of stocks that are performing at higher rates than others, we do want it to be meaningful to them.
For sure.
So right now, what's meaningful to our little ones is just these are the brands I recognize. I want to invest in this. Now, as they see their brothers and sisters kind of reporting on their portfolio performance that they're doing better, then they start to listen and say, oh, you made more on yours than I've made on mine. Okay, maybe I want to kind of make some changes. But it's still something that's self-led that they're able to do, and it means something to them. So we're not at all swaying them on what they should invest in. We're just kind of giving each other updates on how our stocks are performing.
Absolutely. And one crazy thing, I read this today. There's an NFL player he used to play for the Carolina Panthers. And so when he signed his contract, the NFL contracts are not guaranteed, by the way. So you get a signing bonus and certain guaranteed money. And so what he did with his guaranteed money was he told them to pay him half of his guaranteed money in Bitcoin.
Very smart.
So it was about $6 million was half of his guaranteed
How long ago
money.
Was that?
And this was in 2020. So $6 million in Bitcoin in 2020, and now today in 2024, it's $20 million.
That's awesome. Is he still playing in the NFL?
Now that I don't know,
Okay.
But even if he's not,
he's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, he's fine for sure.
Yeah.
And those are things that don't just come to you through osmosis, right?
No.
It comes through kind of having that financial literacy to understand that you do have to figure out a way to make your money work for you, so that you're not always beholden to working for your money.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. That's a great story.
So next up, we will go into having your kids on your credit cards as an authorized signer.
Yes. So there are different credit cards that have, we won't go into all of them, but what I will say is that depending on the age of your kid, those are the different credit cards you can add. So because we have kids that range between right now 6 and 16, I was mainly looking for ones that allowed our kiddos to be added no matter what the age was. There's a good amount of them that start at 13, and then you can add your kids as authorized signers. There are some, though, however, that you can add them as authorized signers with no age limit. So I know for sure that Citibank, we have an American Airlines Citibank, they are able to be authorized signers no matter what age. And so there's one other one, but off the top of my head, because I know that our kids are authorized signers on 2 of our credit cards. But what that does is, as long as you're paying that bill on time, they're able now to swap your longevity of credit history for their nil credit history. So when they start out in the world, they have some credit history with that one card that kind of helps their score be higher. Because when they start out, although their score won't be low, there's only so high it can get because they have no credit rating. And so you being able to put them on a card and pay it off, and it's, this card doesn't have a huge amount every month, but you being able to put them on the card and pay it off allows them to kind of have some credit history. So for the longest time, the cards were just in my desk drawer and they were just authorized signers, and I would just kind of, I think I had it attached to Starbucks or something, and I would just kind of pay that off. Now with my older ones, yes.
That right there.
Yeah, it ended up getting crazy. But with my older ones, I will give them the credit card. So For my daughter, 2 days out of the week, she's not with me when she goes to church. She's with another family. And so that's, I pay that off every month, but that's just the money that she is able to buy herself dinner because she leaves the house at 6 something. She gets back home at 9:30, I think. So that's, I pay that off. With my son, it's a little bit trickier because to my son, everything is an emergency. So Starbucks is an emergency and a Shein purchase is an emergency. Yeah. But it also helps us in a controlled environment see how they're regarding credit so that we can make those tweaks and say, okay, we're going to put your card on hold now because we're saying that you don't really understand that it's just supposed to be for this category. But my daughter, she's really good about understanding if it's food related and I'm not with mommy, then I can use it for food. I don't really see a lot of other purchases on her. So I'm starting to see that she's responsible. But because we're still in this controlled environment with my son, we can say, okay, we need to pull back a little bit and kind of reintroduce it little by little. He has it in a crunch if he needs it. If he's with another family and we, need him to be able to have access to money, we're starting to work in them kind of using their own credit cards because they have green light, but that's the difference between a debit and a credit card. We also want them to know responsibly how to use credit. So we are, trusting both of them within what they've shown us that they can kind of handle right now. But it makes us feel good that we're not trying to teach this lesson from afar while they're away at school
at college,
and trying to kind of figure it out. So we're able to little by little introduce it to them when they're in the home and say, this is the only category you may use this credit card. And then we just kind of pay it off every month. But we're teaching them how to responsibly use credit.
I remember like it was yesterday at Judson College, and I'm going into the Commons, and they had all these credit card vendors.
See, now everybody tells stories about that. So you had that. If we had it at our school, I don't remember it.
Listen, you was in Malibu. You ain't need all that.
I'm sure they did. I just didn't see it. If they did.
Yeah, man. I remember being, so this was when I was 18. I remember being like 25, being like, God dang it, I got to pay this crap off now. Like, it was crazy. So that's what you don't want to set your kids up for
sure.
Is that right there. But also one thing to note is, if you have multiple kids, you can't apply the same thing to all of them because they're going to respond differently.
They all need to be parented differently.
Our daughter, she's a little more financially responsible than our son.
Just responsible.
Yes, but then at the same time, she may lose the card and he won't lose the card.
So when we talk about responsibility, it's different. That's very true. He's going to hold on to everything. She loses her credit card probably once a month.
So it's just, you got to know your kids.
You
got
to
know your kids.
But just a small introduction so that they're not getting out into the real world and hearing this word credit and being like, awesome. So this just means I give you this card and I get whatever I want. Us saying, okay, for now it'll just be this category. And then as they get older, maybe we'll say, okay, we'll go ahead and use the credit card for that. I think earlier for homecoming tickets, she was saying, hey, today's the last day. And I'm like, okay, we'll go ahead and use the credit card for that. So we start to open it up more within the boundaries of what they can do. And then as they start earning money, we'll start to say, okay, well, you can use a credit card for that, but you are going to have to pay for that.
For sure.
So that's how we'll ease them into kind of now paying for some of their things. Because right now we take care of the credit card bill. And make no mistake, we will not have children who we are just taking care of every credit. Because that's just no way for them to learn. We don't have anybody that's taking care of our credit card bill. So, while we are providing the basics, we want them to see, a tie between their work and their choices that they're making with their money.
Also, when you mentioned the airline card, please sign your kids up. If you plan on doing any traveling or anything, sign them up for those miles rewards programs and everything. Now, they may not be able to purchase anything as a kid, but they still get the rewards when you travel because the rewards don't go on your account. They have to have their own. So once they're 18, they should have a ton of miles and stuff, depending on how often you travel from when they're born to when they're 18, obviously. And so that's what we've done. And so our kids have a certain amount of miles and stuff. With Delta, with American, United doesn't fly from here that much, but those two for
Delta
sure.
And American is what we use.
So just keep that in mind as well. And then, you mentioned paying, helping them pay for stuff on their own and showing them how to save for something on their own brings us to our next topic, which is, helping them, their savings account, and then us matching them with big ticket item.
For sure. So big ticket items that they want that is not necessarily a need, or nor is it necessarily something that they ask for Christmas or birthdays, becomes something that they're going to need to fund. So right now we have 2 almost drivers. So pray for us because almost every time we go out into the world, we have one of our teenagers
wanting to drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have teenagers and dealt with that whole driving thing, it gets better. But in the beginning, it's, it's dicey. So what we're doing right now is talking to them about their car situation. So while cars are given to them, They have to do all of the, I know that friends kind of lease cars for their kids, and we understand that and totally agree with that. But we had cars sitting around. Parents had cars, we had cars. So we're like, here is this car. It's older. It's up to you to pay for the wrap job. It's up to you. We will do all of the mechanics to make sure that you are out on the road and you are safe. We will always do all of the mechanics as long as you're under our roof.
Right.
But all of the aesthetics that kids want, this is a you thing. So my son working different jobs, we say, whatever you bring in and put in your savings, we will match towards your car.
So speaking of cars, what was your first car?
Mine. So I don't remember the exact year of it, but it was a cloth top Mercury Sable.
Okay.
And so you could tell, because we bought it used, of course, it had an engine fire at some point, and the paint job never got redone. So you could just tell on the hood where the bubbles of the paint job was still there. But it was bought with my money.
Okay.
And it had a 7-disc CD changer. And remember those little faces that you were able to take out and put in your purse?
Yeah.
It had that. So to me, all the things that I needed were there. Whatever it looked like, it was fine to me. But it was just something about the fact that I had bought it. It was my money that I was like, you can't tell me anything.
Right.
And so eventually, my mom was able to level me up, and I got a Ford Contour, which I kept all through college, with the cherry red paint job. But my first car, it was, my rite of passage, my money, I bought it. But then again, I was going to school with other people that bought their cars too. So everybody was
interesting. This is the public school?
Of course, yeah.
What in the hell?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm going to school with other people that, I'm not fighting against BMWs and Mercedes and like cars that, clearly their parents just kind of went out and gave. It was cars that either their family had laying around that they gave them, or it was some of their money mixed with some of their parents. So that was just kind of the time, I think, when we grew up.
Nice.
What about you?
Very cool. Well, first, but how did you, get the money to do this? You said this was your own money. Mm-hmm. How old were you?
I'm 17.
Okay, so where'd you get this money from?
Shout out to Wendy's.
Shooting dice.
That was my first job. I worked at Wendy's and then leveled up to Burger King, and so
leveled up.
Now I would say Wendy's has a superior food.
Right, I was about to say, don't shame the Wendy's.
Burger King has more hours, so that's how. When you're young, you need them hours. That's what. And so save my little money. And,
oh my goodness. I remember working with my brother at McDonald's, and we would like to close.
Okay.
Because closing meant that you had to close the store down. But sometimes they would have truck as well, and so we would tell our parents that we had to do truck that night, because truck would go so we would close at midnight, truck would get there about 2, and we'd have to unload that stuff and then be done about 4 and then go home. We had truck like every week, and it was really there like once a month. But every week.
You hear that, man? These are the boys you raised.
It is. It is.
But what was your first car?
So my first car, though, it was an 86 Pontiac Grand Am. It was red, and now we didn't have no engine fires or anything, but the paint on it was all bubbled up and stuff for some reason. I have no idea why.
Because it was hot in Louisiana. It was probably
very hot, very hot. But the freaking window wouldn't roll down, man, or roll up. So
did you have AC? Please tell me you had AC.
I did have AC at least, yes. But the window, it would go down and just get stuck down there and wouldn't come back up. And so it was power. Okay. So it was like one of the power windows. And so it would go down there. I would have to take a coat hanger, them old wire coat hangers, and bend it, turn it into a little hook, stick it down there, and pull it back up.
So at that point, it wasn't even worth it to roll the window down.
No, man, no. It would just stay down all the time. And then every time I made a left-hand turn, it would just jerk like this. So I only made right-hand turns.
And it landed you right in California.
It did. So, it did. It worked out. Full circle right
See,
there.
And our kids will never know the struggle. We talk about making them contribute, but they will never know the struggle of these cars that our parents let us hit the road in. And I mean, I think to some extent we don't want them to know the struggle, right? Because I can't imagine our kids not being able to take left-hand turns or, having to reach down and get the window. Yes, and canyons. And so, I mean, we want them to struggle enough to kind of make them gracious and, really accepting of kind of where they're at, but we also want to see the fruits of our labor and kind of push them up some so that they don't have to do that.
For sure.
But that being said, I think that it's fine for them to kind of go half on it with us. And,
I agree. And contribute something, contribute something. So
it won't be a Mercury Sable with the kids.
I think it should be. I think it
just
should
something, some kind of contribution is all we ask so that we have, I think you treat things differently when you have some skin in the game. That's
100%. 100%. I agree. So next up, we'll come up with give you guys some additional tips and tricks to teach your kids some financial basics, right?
Perfect, yeah.
So first, I would say would be setting up some sort of financial meeting. Now, it doesn't have to be specifically just finances, but you guys got to talk about it in an organized way. It can't be, off the cuff, like while you're in the car or out at the store or something. Like set a specific time, date, and have an agenda. You as the adult have an agenda to come to the table with so that there's some sort of flow and stuff to the meeting.
I agree. For us, we just include that in our family meetings. So in the past, we've talked about how we do once a month family meetings. On our agenda, there will be a good amount of time lent to talking about financial topics. So it may be a topic that we are introducing that we're kind of talking about, but it's also, we talk about following our portfolio progress, but it's also talking about what are we saving for?
Yes.
What's our plan? What are our goals? Everybody has different goals. We make sure that all of because our kids range from age 6 to 16, we make sure that all of our kids know how they can earn money in the family. So when they have those goals that they're saving for, they know what they need to do to earn money in addition to the grade checks. They know if they want money on top of that, what they need to do to earn money. And so we reiterate every time, because what the 6-year-old can do to earn money is definitely not what the 16-year-old can do.
Absolutely.
So we have those conversations about how to get money in, but we also have those conversations about what are they doing for their money, what are they saving for, how are they doing. We have some that are more borrowers. And some that are more lenders. So we try to have those conversations with them, about the long-term effects of kind of where they are with their money habits.
Yep. And those meetings can kind of drag on and get kind of boring. I mean, even when we have them, I can sit up there, I'm standing in the front kind of directing the meeting, and you can just see the kids' eyes glazing over. And so kind of to make it a little more fun, we also kind of institute some real life scenarios and games. So one of my favorite ones that we would play as a kid is Payday. I remember playing that game with my cousins so much. Like it was so much fun.
I'm surprised that game is that old.
It is. It's super, super old. I had no idea that we were actually learning how to, do stuff on a day-to-day basis. Like it was really, hey, this is some money. This is 30 days on a board.
Yeah, how do you make it work?
We're just having fun with it. So that's one of the things that we do with our kids to kind of break up the monotony of just talking about it and meetings or whatever, is we play Payday, Monopoly. We'll get to the game of life at some point. But we really like to incorporate those games because it allows them some sort of autonomy, and you get to see how they'll react kind of in a controlled environment in these scenarios.
For sure, because as with any topic we talk about, their eyes glaze over many times. It's not just money. It's just whenever we open our mouths nowadays. So it is nice to see them putting some of the things that we're talking about to use so that we can see, okay, they are listening.
Yes.
When they're stopping on properties when we're playing Monopoly, they're like, most of them are not going to pass by a property without investing and getting something. Now all of them know how to kind of trade and make sure that they have the whole neighborhood so that they can add property. So they understand that there's no way to win, other than figuring out a way to make your money work for you and investing in things. So we've been saying that since the beginning of time, but it's nice to kind of, when we play those games, or to hear the conversation that's going on when they're wheeling and dealing and negotiating with each other, where we're like, okay, so somebody's listening. We can't tell that they're listening, but somebody's listening. So that's, like Sean said, there'll be games that we'll kind of, as they get a little older, try to introduce so that the whole family can play. But right now, Payday was one that was early on that we play, and now we have every single Monopoly, LSU Monopoly, regular Monopoly, Barbie Monopoly. We play it a lot, but it helps, it helps give real life scenarios to some of the things that we're talking about.
Another tip is, and again, we don't get anything from Greenlight. That's just what we use, but budgeting apps. And so within the Greenlight card app, it allows them to see their money as far as where they're spending it, and different types of budgeting options as well inside of there.
In addition, they can play games. So it'll have different quiz games where they'll tell them a term and they can try to guess what it is. They can earn, badges and green light because they are learning financial literacy within just the terms that they're learning, or just kind of getting a scenario and what do you do. So within there, they can play apps. But we love it because just like we would log on to our online bank account and kind of see what's going on, they're able to log on to theirs and see, when we go somewhere, they're able to check and see what money they have. So, if all of a sudden we get some excitement to clean our cars or get some excitement to do some of the things, we know it has to do that somebody's checked their account and they know that they have some stuff coming up. But I mean, that's right in line with the decisions we make in life, right? Where we have something exciting coming up and we want to make sure that we, have money for it. So, it's an app that helps them kind of keep up to date with what's going on, but it also helps them make those decisions about how to make sure that they have money for what they need.
And the final tip is having them donate to their favorite charity or philanthropic company to donate their money to. And, we definitely believe in, like we mentioned in a different podcast, our tithes and everything. And so this is kind of their way of doing this specifically on their own as well, so that they can give back.
Again, another green light plug. We talked about the 4 different categories that they offer. One of them is to give. That's one of the categories is to give. And so they do have some options of things that you can give to. And so when they transfer it out, it goes directly to some of those. It can be charitable foundations. It can be different crowd funds. But they're able to kind of browse and see the different options they have to donate and do that. So we do tell them that, a percentage of their money does need to go there. That they just know that they're a citizen of the world, really, and they can make a change by kind of caring about something and taking that under their wing. If everybody kind of has their lane of something that they adopt and care about, then that's kind of how we help each other out.
So now that we've given you guys some tips and tricks on teaching your kids the financial basics, here are some action items. First, you want to start at least talking about it, all right? From my upbringing, my parents really didn't talk to me about this stuff as a kid. They were just busy, working and maintaining. And so you definitely want to, at the very, very least, start talking to your kids about this type of stuff. Just because you don't want them to learn about it later in college and it be the first time that they start hearing about this type of stuff. I know that, in our community, we don't talk about a lot of things as far as telling our kids our business or anything like that. But this is definitely something that you guys will want to implement as a whole so that it's not so foreign. We want to break those cycles how we were brought up.
For sure. And we want to make sure that we're talking to them about money and we're giving them the empowered mindset around money and not the scarcity and the scared mindset around money. I know when we were growing up, my mom, a single mom, she was doing everything that she could to keep us afloat. So sometimes the energy, not necessarily conversation, but just the energy around money was a very tense and afraid conversation. So we like to make our kids feel empowered. So even if we're like, there's no way at all that they can afford that, we talk about like, okay, well, what do you need to do to make that happen? Because we want them to see themselves as able to earn. We want them to see money as something that's able to flow to them freely if they can kind of open up their mind and figure out a way to kind of bring it to them. So of course, money is finite. So there's choices you have to make. You can't just get everything in one sitting. So we do kind of sometimes talk about it. And okay, if we get this, then we'll have to wait on this. So what would you prefer? But we like to empower them around the topic of money. So we are not like we don't have McDonald's money or we don't have we can say, we're not doing that because we're making dinner at home. But if you want to buy yourself something, then you're totally fine. We'll stop. You can get it. Oh, you don't have money? Okay, so then you probably should do something to earn money so that the next time you're feeling like you gotta have that McFlurry and we're going home, you're able to do it.
For sure.
So we really talk to them about kind of empowering them to see what they want and then figure out ways to make sure that they can afford it. So it's not just the conversation, it's also the energy that surrounds the conversation, making sure that it's not like a lack conversation. Doesn't mean that ever as adults we've never been afraid or looked at each other like, okay, how are we gonna swing this? But we really want our kids to feel empowered and so that they go into it not feeling like money rules them, but they kind of rule their money.
Another thing to add in is you want to make sure that you're meeting about it. Talking about it is one thing. The meeting is what you do to formulate the plan, and then you execute on that afterwards.
It's also a time to learn and teach. Sometimes when you are on the go or when it's in real time, you can't, get into a conversation about overdrafts or interest or, things that, you really want to make sure that they have a working knowledge of. So when you are sitting down and having those conversations about money, you're able to kind of get into the specifics and the definitions. I mean, that's when our kids' eyes glaze over. We're going over a lot of definitions, but it's important for the first time they hear it, for it not to be some smooth talking salesman on their college campus that's making interest just seem like, oh, it's not that big of a deal because you can buy whatever you want.
Yep.
We want it to come from us so that we can give them the unbiased view of it, because we have nothing to gain from them, getting a credit card or not. So we really want to say that it's important to kind of take time out to talk about and teach as well.
Lastly, just putting those steps into action, right? So you talked about it, you've met about it and come up with a plan. And so now it's time to execute whatever that is or whatever that looks like that comes up for you guys. But also don't do it just once, because this is something that's going to constantly be changing over and over and over again. You may have a goal to do this, something may come up the middle of the month. So when you meet again, your goals change, right? And so it's something that's going to constantly need to be addressed and updated.
For sure. And if you can, get some practical practice as well. So even if it's just that you guys are at the store and you give them $5 and, have them see what they can get for it, or have them see if they can plan a dinner with this. If you guys are at Dave & Buster's and you give them a 20 and they have to kind of figure out, okay, this is all you have. So what are you using on tickets? What are you using on snacks? What are you, of course we like any type of card, again, that there's multiple companies that offer a teen card or a card that they can have, because we don't want their first time dealing with cards to be credit cards. We want them to understand the difference between a debit and it's coming out right now. If I don't have it, I'm not going to be able to pull for it, and credit, where it's like, oh, it seems like they're going to cover this for me, but at what cost?
Right.
So although cash is king, and a lot of times, parents will give kids, cash or let them keep the change, we do advise at some point to try to get them attached to a card so that they can understand it's not just a piece of plastic with unlimited spending. It's directly correlated to what they put on that card.
Those are your action items. Woof. Let's go.
For sure.
Let's go.
We say this all the time. We would rather you guys employ one or two of the pieces of advice that we give and just start out slow than listen to everything, think it's a really good idea, but just be overwhelmed and just not do it. So although we talked about kind of what we do and what works for us, understand we did not just wake up one day and just start all of these.
For sure.
We just little by little incrementally added them all until that's kind of our financial teaching plan. You're going to do some of these, you're going to tweak them, you're going to do what works for you, but just start out with just enough that feels feasible so that you don't get overwhelmed and just don't do anything.
Definitely leave us your feedback in the comments. Let us know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, any feedback you have for us. We are excited to hear.
Yes, and other ideas that you guys have that we probably hadn't even thought of, but we love, that's what we really want to do, is have a community so we can kind of hear what you're doing and learn from you as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us again. Please like and subscribe so that you guys know when we release an episode and we can follow on this journey together. So that concludes this episode of teaching your kiddos how to be financially savvy.
Yes.
We will see you next time. Until then, we pray that you stay unified in purpose, unstoppable as a team, and unconditional above all.
Let's go.